lot of people on Instagram have been asking me, requesting, wanting to know how I learned how to render in roughly 3 weeks. The first thing that you'll do when you start rendering your avatars for VRChat is that you'll go up to File and you'll import the FBX of your avatar. 99% of the time, if you buy an avatar and you upload it to your account, that FBX will always be in the project. You'll just have to find it in the assets folder. Usually there will be a folder named FBX if the creator of your avatar is organized. You'll import your FBX, and after you import that FBX, you'll have to texture it. So you can click Z and it'll bring up this little wheel, and you'll go to material preview. When you find these textures, you'll go over here to this little you'll come down here and, like, let me find an example. Our hair here is textured with a image, so when you 99% of the time your texture will look like this. It'll be white, it'll be grayed out, your avatar will not be textured because Blender doesn't know where your textures are. So when you redo your textures, you'll click the little yellow spot, the little yellow circle, and you'll click image texture. So when you add your image texture, you'll click open, and I have mine here, and it'll be hair, and I used 4D PNG. And it will come out like this. This is just basic texturing. Some avatars will require you to use alphas. Most male avatars will require you to use alphas because a lot of the male avatars are using Zimikat bald cap. And with Zimikat bald cap, you have to use an alpha to make it transparent. Well, my avatar doesn't have anything on it that should be transparent, so I'm not going to show that today. After you do that will come the posing part. A lot of my renders I use environments. If you want to use an environment, I recommend Kiina scenes, KN scenes. I recommend these. They're already set up, they're already textured. All you have to do is import your avatar, texture your avatar, pose mode, render. Pretty easy peasy. Some of these cost money, but most of them are free. So once you start pose mode, I recommend posing in solid mode. Because it saves you a lot of lag if you're like me and you're still running on that budget PC, because I am running on that budget PC. Okay. Once you start pose mode, you are able to move your avatar's bones just like this. You're able to pose her, him, whatever, to whatever pose that you want. Whatever pose that you think is right for you, you are able to do that. If you do get a pose that you want to use, do not stop pose mode in cats. Don't use cats, because if you stop pose mode in cats, you'll lose the entire pose that you did. So you'll go to the top left up here and you'll go to object mode. And if you want to, you can start pose mode up here too. Alright, so I have this, just cute little sitting pose. It's not perfect, but it's good when it comes to demonstration. Her thighs have a blend shape. When you are looking at your blend shapes, you'll come to this little triangle, and your shape keys, blend shapes, same thing, pretty much. My body has a blend shape to smoothen out the clipping for the garter. So you'll just turn the value all the way up to 1. And that clipping is now gone. Same thing goes for your facial expressions. So if you want to use a facial expression for your render, you'll find that facial expression and turn the value up to 1. The original model is Baby Doll by Lost Things. So now that we have our pose, I'm going to make a cute little background for it. Just something simple, nothing too big. So now we'll get to the rendering part. A lot of, there are 3 different rendering options or choices, engines, I guess you could call it. Cycles is super detailed, time consuming. It takes a while for the render to complete. Takes a good minute. You can set a time limit and you can set a cycle limit or sample limit, but the less time, the less samples, the less the quality. More time, more samples, more quality. You have to add light point. I usually use point lights. Wherever the light is, wherever your model is, the light will reflect like a normal light would. You can also adjust the power. So it'll be brighter, it'll be not as bright. I'm going to use 2 point lights, one on each side for this. So this point light will be right here, and I'm going to make this one pink. I usually typically use pink and blue because they're my 2 favorite colors. Pink and blue, pink, purple, blue, everything that's, you know, anything besides yellow and green, I'll pass. But you can right click and duplicate object and put this one over here on the opposite side. So I'm gonna make this blue. So this is what we're working with here. This is just Eevee. This is just Eevee. So cycles is going to be very different. Cycles is going to be very time consuming, you know, very typically renders will start out super duper 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 pixely. Super duper pixely. But like I said, more time, more samples, more quality. Less time, less samples, less quality. So when it comes to sampling, there will be a viewport. I usually turn on denoise because personally for me, I just like to be able to see what I'm looking at. Whereas this is very pixely, very staticky, noisy. I can't really get a good idea of what my render is looking like with this. It's a little bit hard for me. So I turn on denoise in the viewport because this is your viewport. And when it's done, it gives me a little bit more of a smoother idea of what's going on when it finishes. Your render, like I said, you can have a time limit on them. So your typical render will start out as at 4096 samples at 0 seconds time limit, which means it will render until it hits 4096 samples, and once it's done rendering all of those samples, it will stop. Your render is finished. So when you render, you have to have a camera. So you'll go to add camera. That's it. That's all you had to do. And when you want to align your camera, you'll align your viewport, you know, roughly where you think your camera is. View, align active camera to view. If it's not where you want it, you just move it. And I do the same thing. And now we're at least somewhat centered. So now that we're somewhat centered, I'm going to turn this back to rendered mode. And when you want to render, it's going to re-render in the viewport every time that you turn it back to render. So now that you have it on render, we're going to click render and render image. So once you render your image, it's going to pop up another window for your render. Do not close Blender and do not try to render another image unless you're opening another Blender project. I hope you enjoyed this video. This is just, you know, keep in mind that I am not a professional. I am not the god of all renders. This is just the basic steps to your first render. Basic steps that I took for my first render, basic steps that I take for pretty much all of my renders. I hope that this was easy to follow. I hope that you understood this well. If you didn't, I'm sorry. Like I said, I will link that other video down below if that helps more.